Hello, welcome to video 2 of the blues, and on this one I'm going to really step it up. So hopefully you've had a chance to go through the first video and look at the 12-bar blues structure, the easy blues structure, and also have a play around with that blues scale. And maybe it was stuff that you've done before, but hopefully all of that is completely in your minds now, and you're ready for step 2, which really takes it up. So we'll jump straight in. I'm going to go through the 12-bar sequence as we did before, but I'm going to talk about how to make it sound jazzy. Now, blues has evolved massively, and we use the ideas from blues in all sorts of styles of music. So it could be pop music that you hear today, blues, blues, of course blues, blues rock, rock and roll, heavy rock, metal, you know, all these things have, all these styles of music have references to blues. Now the same goes with jazz. So jazz has definitely got its roots come from blues. And jazz musicians do actually play blues, but they do different things to it and they make it a little bit more unique. Jazz musicians love to play as many notes as they can. I'm going to offend loads of jazz musicians now, but they do like playing a lot of notes. And to do this, what they do is they add in chords. Okay, so we've got our original chord sequence here. Hopefully you're doing this in your mind as I'm writing it out, predicting what's coming next. Okay, now first thing I want to talk about is this end point. Now jazz musicians don't particularly like going from chord 5 to chord 4 to chord 1. They really love doing something different, which is called a 2-5-1. Now in jazz, a 2-5-1 is the most well-used chord sequence. It's the chord sequence for jazz musicians. So chord 2 in the key of C would be D. Now I'm using this symbol here. I tend to use these jazz symbols. If you haven't seen this before, this means minor. So D-7, D minor 7. So this is chord 2. And if you're not quite sure about the sequence of chords, if diatonic chords, you could just look on Wikipedia for this and you'll be able to see that for each key that you're in, so in this case C, you would have a chord. The chord of C would be chord number 1, chord D would be chord number 2, E, 3, etc., etc., up to chord 7. But not only that, they have different types of chord. So C is normally a major chord, and in jazz it's normally a major 7th. Now we're dealing with blues, so I've already talked about this in the previous video, that this 7th, this dominant 7th, is very quirky. It's particular to this style. Now this is actually a little bit more traditional. We've got a D minor 7 chord, which is a straight 2 chord, if you like. Think of it as a type 2 chord. And the 5, which we had before in this bar, we've just moved it down to here. Now at the moment what that does is it just softens it a little bit. So instead of having this big chord 5 here and then a 4 and then I jump down to 1, this sequence is so recognized in the jazz world that it's a really nice sort of area it's a very sort of soft transition. It's a sort of kind of like an evolution of a perfect cadence really, where you've got chord 5 to chord 1, but it's preempted with chord 2. So it is kind of, you know, classical theory is involved here as well. But this sequence, there's so many things that jazz musicians do over a 2-5-1. They just love to throw in as many 2-5-1s as they can. If they can't find a 2-5-1, they'll just do the 2 and the 5. So we're going to talk about a few extra places here where you could do that. Now the reason why I wanted you to really visualize that first blues was because there are certain points, so here's one, where there's a really obvious change. So we're going from C and we've now changed onto F. Now this is a huge change. It's gone to chord number 4. Now because of this, we call this a target chord, and we're going to now try to preempt this chord. And what do we use if we're playing a jazz blues? We're going to use a 2-5-1. Okay, so now we have to think of this chord as being chord number 4 because we're in the key of C. C, D, E, F, it's 4. But we're going to also think about it as chord number 1. Chord number 1 being our new target chord. So we're going to preempt it with a 2 and a 5. And what we do is in this bar here. So instead of a C7 chord, we're going to have chord 2 of this, of F, which is, you can have a little think, hopefully you get the right answer, G minor 7. And then chord number 5, which happens to be C7, which we're already using. So this is now a 2-5-1 into chord 4. You just have to get your head around the fact that we've gone into chord number 4, but we're also thinking of it as chord number 1. I hope you're happy with that. Okay, now, other things that can happen in what I call a jazz blues is that the second bar here, very often, actually even in a basic blues, it very often gets changed to chord number 4. Chord number 4 is so interchangeable with chord number 1 that you can almost replace it at any point. But this is a very common chord progression for a sort of a step up basic blues or into a jazz blues. And the reason really is that jazz musicians don't particularly like to stay on one chord for too long. So to give you that extra chord in this bar here, it doesn't really detract from the whole first line being in the key of C, but it just gives a little bit of movement, and it means you can throw in some extra notes and things for that. So it gives you a bit of movement there, opportunities, which is what jazz is all about. We're also going to talk about this bar here, so bar number 8. And another very common thing is that we would preempt whatever chord you're going to next. So we've already talked about this change here, which has gone from 5 to 4 to 1, and now it's gone 2-5-1. So you could actually preempt this chord. Now I know you're thinking that this is a chord 2 and it's preempting this chord, but you could preempt it anyway, and this is what often happens. So what do we do to preempt a target chord? We use a 2 and a 5. So in this case, we're going to use a 2 chord, E minor 7, and a 5 chord, A7. Okay, so that's a very, very common addition to the jazz blues, which is very, very different from a blues, a basic blues. Now, because this is a minor chord, you might tend to see that some strange things happen with these chords here. A minor 2-5 is different from a normal major 2-5. So you might see something like this: flat 5, flat 9, perhaps. Those are kind of things that can happen. The more you look at it, the more you'll notice that there are so many variations. Sometimes they'll be a little bit more theoretically true to what's going on. Other times they don't worry about that so much. So if you see things like that occurring, that's just because we're going 2-5-1, and the 1, although it's the 2-5-1 of this, we're actually thinking of it as a 1 chord at the same time. It's a minor chord, so we have to use a minor 2-5 to get to it. Okay, now the cool thing about this is that we have lots more opportunities for improvisation, and this is what I'm going to get to next, which is how to improvise over something like this. Now, there's all sorts of things that you could do. I'm just going to get you to do the chord tones. So we're going through each one of these chords and we're trying to work out what it is. Now, this might take you some time. You might be able to do it straight away, which is great. If not, then work it out and spend that time. It will be really beneficial, and this will pay off. Just because we're doing blues, it will pay off for everything you do. So going through a C7 chord, C, E, G and B flat, F, A, C, E flat, back to C, E, G, B flat, G, B flat, D, F. I could go on and on and on. You're going to be doing these yourself. But something like this, you'll start to get E, G, B flat, which is the flat 5, and D. And this one here, A, C sharp, E, G, and then if you wanted to put in the flat 9, that would be B flat on top. So you're starting to get some notes which were very, very different from the first basic blues. So whereas you just had that blues scale and some very basic harmony, this time we've got all sorts of things going on. So we've got B flats going, A sharp, C sharps going on, with B flats being a very integral part of this bar. So C sharps and B flats going on. We've also got a D in here as well. So you've got different elements of the scales being thrown in, and it will really create a different sound. Okay, so first thing I want you to do is to go through every single chord and work out what it is and play the arpeggio. Try to visualize as well as you go through, and in a second I'm going to do a demonstration of going through the arpeggios, and I'm also going to play you an improvisation which is just using the chord tones. Okay, so hopefully that's made sense. If you are unsure of any of this, you can leave some comments underneath. I'm really interested to see how you get on with it. This is a sort of intermediate level video where we're stepping things up from just a basic blues, a 3-chord blues, and now all of a sudden you can see there's so much more going on with this, and there are so many more opportunities. Also, we're trying to learn how to improvise in a much more methodical way, rather than just chucking one scale over the whole thing. We're actually going to be looking at the chords that you're playing and playing the chord tones for that particular chord at that time. So there's an amount of work here, and see how you get on with it, and please leave some comments, and I'd love it if you shared and click like and all that sort of stuff as well. And I will put the arpeggio, me playing the arpeggios on there as well, and giving you a little demonstration of an improvisation using these chord tones. Have fun with it, and I'll see you on the next video.
Mm-hmm.